In the news this week, ceasefire in the trade war. Will Washington's deal with Beijing damage Perth's export business?
Approval ratings slip for the Prime Minister as the bushfire crisis in Australia drags on.
WA lends a hand to the environment and the community in the new container return scheme.
And Fringe brings in the punters' full performance as the Arts Festival kicks off.
This is the Evening News with Ivan Lung and Danielle Staniskov.
Good evening and thanks for joining us for the first time in 2020. After 2 years' worth of bickering and Twitter tough talking, the US and China has signed a new trade agreement, signalling a cooling of trade war and a return to free global trade. But will Western Australian industries lose out on the competition against America? Sarah Smith takes a look.
US President Donald Trump and Chinese Premier Li Keqiang signed a new multi-billion-dollar trade deal this week, in a move that President Trump has called a great achievement for both countries.
This is going to be a great agreement for both countries. It's far greater than $200 billion, and it'll grow every year.
The deal commits China to buying $200 billion worth of American goods, including liquefied natural gas, coal, beef and seafood over the next 2 years. In exchange, Washington will reduce tariffs on Chinese goods entering the United States. There are concerns that increased Chinese reliance on American imports could lead to a drop in WA's export market, but some experts think that's unlikely. Business reporter Matt McKenzie says that the high quality and competitive pricing of Australian products means that Australian producers should find it fairly easy to sell their products elsewhere.
I would not be too concerned for Western Australia because we're so good at what we do. People are still going to be needing to buy what we make.
China has also agreed to enforce better protection for intellectual property and is required under this agreement to tackle theft of American trade secrets by Chinese companies.
It's going to be bad news for the US if China keeps stealing their stuff. It'll be good if they can finally enforce some respect for intellectual property.
Sarah Smith, WAMN News.
Prime Minister Scott Morrison has boosted assistance for bushfire victims, but a poll reveals the PM's approval rating has dropped over his handling of the crisis. Nelson Liu spoke with political expert Ian Cook about Mr Morrison's aid efforts in wake of the fires and if he can recover to Australians.
Scott Morrison's taken a lot of heat over this, given that he's decided to take a trip overseas during the fire and also his perceived insensitivity towards it. Was the insensitivity deserved?
Look, it was bad timing to some extent that he was in Hawaii when that happened. Perhaps he needed to come back quicker. And one of his problems is that he's generally been associated with a sort of Tony Abbott group who've generally been sort of resistant to climate change and had tended to deny it. So he's a bit caught up in that. He was the guy who took coal into Parliament, let's not forget, saying coal was back.
This week, $50 million for charities to boost recovery. Family aid payments to the tune of $400 per child, $300 a day payments for volunteer firefighters for lost income. Has he made up for his indiscretions at all?
Well, I mean, I think this has made a difference. And I think certainly, it's a recognition of the scale of the problem we've got. And to some extent, I guess, people weren't sort of convinced that he was caring enough or they were seeing the problem, as big as it is. And so I think this is the beginning of a sort of an attempt to try to say, hey, look, we're really serious about this. We're really serious about sort of responding to this fire.
And finally, where does Scott Morrison and the federal government go from here?
I mean, I think they've got a real problem on their hands. They've got to get serious. They've got to start talking differently. They've got to start acting differently. They've got to start sort of reassuring people in a way at this stage they're not.
WA police have seized 31 kilograms of drugs in what they say is a significant disruption to an established criminal network. Police stopped a Kenworth truck on Great Eastern Highway in the Lakes on Christmas Eve last year, uncovering 19 kilograms of meth, 10 kilos of MDMA and 2 kilos of cocaine. 2 men have been charged with possession of intent to sell or supply the drug and have appeared in Perth magistrates' courts.
WA will renew its focus on the environment and community through a container return scheme to give it a leg up in the state. From June 2nd, Western Australians will be able to return used drink containers through the state government's Containers for Change at 145 refund locations for a 10-cent refund. It's designed to give WA a helping hand, protecting the environment and more jobs at refund points with 500 expected.
It'll operate in the city and the regions. It'll ensure that we reuse and recycle containers and cans across our state in ways we never have before. 44% of our litter is containers and cans, and this will ensure that that is dealt with.
WA hosted a record-breaking number of holiday makers in 2019, according to a survey released this week. The state beats the rest of the country for growth in the tourism sector, with 2.87 million visitors to the state last year. Tourism Minister says one of the most successful tools the state government used to get people to WA is the Rottnest Quokka selfie.
The Quokka selfie phenomena that we initiated with Roger Federer in early 2018 has been a massive success. It's good news for the economy, it's good news for employment, good news for jobs. We're filling our hotels, cafes, bars and restaurants, and we're growing jobs right across the state.
The United States Senate has begun the impeachment trial after it was passed at the House of Representatives. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts sworn in as he presides over the President's conduct. Although the impeachment is expected to fail due to the fact that the Senate is Republican-controlled, the bill is historic as Donald Trump became the third president in the country's history to face an impeachment trial. Brexit is approaching soon, with Britain and the European Union to decide their relationship after the split. It's understood a series of seminars will be held for diplomats, with reports suggesting that political declarations and free trade agreement will be the main focuses of the meetings. During the transition period after Brexit, previous agreements such as trade, immigration terms will remain for 12 months.
Perth's art scene is due for a boost to business in the next few weeks as Fringe Festival 2020 kicked off on Thursday night. Nick Doig is making his directional debut at Fringe this year and says it's a great opportunity for artists to get people buying tickets. Doig is directing a late-night Bone Mo, a surrealist take on celebrity talk show. Late Night Bone Mo opens on the 22nd of January at Lazy Susan's.
There's a lot of crazy guests. We interviewed Dracula at one point. It's actually his first late night appearance in over 150 years, which is, we're really pleased to get that. And a lot of local talent as well coming on. We're a Perth-based group of students initially who've started writing and working together. And some of them come on as guests during the show as well, and keeping it local and fun.
And that's our weekly news and current affairs. We have the latest news on the website and social media pages.
Until next Sunday after 8, thanks for watching. Have a pleasant evening.
Take care.